Hello, everyone, and welcome back to this week's episode of the Rosa and Rubini podcast, Making Sense of This World. My name is Manas Chavla, and as always, I'm really pleased to be joined by CEO and Head of Research, Brunel Rosa. This week, we're talking about the clash between Donald Trump and Powell, which is intensifying once again. Brunel, last week we spoke about President Trump potentially having his Liz Truss moment as he presented the sort of Liberation Day tariffs that went on to wreck the economy. Um, One of the other, parallels you'd made then is how Liz Truss had sort of floated the idea potentially of tampering with Andrew Bailey, the then sort of Bank of England governor's job. Is there a parallel to what's happening with the US now, and will the situation end up in the same way, do you think?
So we had this Listras moment. I think it was so apparent that eventually even Trump couldn't deny. When he made the announcement on Liberation Day, effectively the market started collapsing in all dimensions, equities, bonds, and dollar. It's very strange. Dollars, the USD and the Treasury always go in the same direction, while in this case, effectively people were selling both the dollar and the Treasury. So Treasury yields went up and the dollar went down. So very, very unusual. They tend to go in the same direction. So clearly, people start losing trust in the administration, its ability to manage the economy, and so they had to backpedal. And this is when the 90-day reprieve was introduced, apart from China, and then the situation was calmed. But um, there was an element, and so this parallel with Liz Truss was very much appropriate, I would say. Now we concluded the previous um, column by saying that in that occasion the system allowed Liz Truss to be replaced within days, while the current system in the US doesn't allow that to happen, and so the only chance is to change policies, not to change the politicians. And so this is what Trump did. Now, as part of that discussion, we also reminded how Liz Truss eventually, years later, kind of recalled how she was thinking about fighting the governor of the Bank of England that was actually buying the gilts. So it's like the UK Treasury to effectively save the day and allowing the pension system to remain alive. Um, and effectively, then Bailey said, "Look, I'm not going to do that beyond a certain point. You got 3 days to sort things out because I'm not going to renew the facility." That put enormous pressure, and so Liz Truss had to go. But before going, she contemplated the idea of firing Bailey and go, further with this clash with the markets. And thank God she didn't do, and the situation calmed down. And then the former Treasury Minister came on board as Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak. Now, the same thing happened to Powell, who effectively thought and was very vocal in saying that um, he won, he said, the termination of Powell cannot come fast enough. He called him, the same way he calls Sleepy Joe and others, he called, too late Powell. He says it's always too late. He doesn't understand this, he doesn't understand that. He should be cutting rates. There are hundreds of reasons. And in reality, he's not doing that. But again, he had to back down because effectively the market made him understand that he would become extremely unhappy if that would happen. And so effectively, eventually he had to come on, to the press and say, no, I have no intention of firing Power.
Yeah, yeah. Well, the question after that is, what does the law say about whether or not Donald Trump can fire Powell? But more importantly, Do you think Trump will abide by the law? Does it matter anyway? Will he try to fire Powell anyway? I know that in his last term, he flirted with the same sort of possibility. What happened then?
So, first of all, by law, he cannot fire Powell. Um, Also, because it would be kind of strange. He is the one who appointed Powell when Janet Yellen finished their term. But then they realized that um, you really need a cause. And this cause is not just a disagreement on economic matters. It's obvious. It needs to be something very serious, such as criminal activity or malfeasance. And none of this can be found. So, legally speaking, you cannot do that. If you did that, the market reaction, even if legally can't, but then it can put so much pressure that eventually things happen. The market reaction will be massively negative, and so this is what effectively stopped him from doing. So the real question to finish is like, what else can you do to reduce the independence of Powell, to continue putting pressure on him and so on, and reduce, his influence? Well, what he can actually do is either appoint other FOMC members if some is about to expire, or within the current setting of the FOMC, choose an FOMC member that he likes a bit better, such as Kevin Walsh, his name has made several times, appointing as new Fed chairman. Now, Powell is not due until May 2026, so we are talking another full year from now.
Mhm.
Okay. And FOMC chairs are always appointed 2 or 3 months before, so to allow an orderly transition without creating chaos. So the question, can it be done 6 months before? Can it be done 9 months before? And if it can be done 9 months before, perhaps we can do 12 months before. So Powell will formally remain chair, but with the new guy coming online, already visible, which you can imagine every time Powell speaks, then let's say the Kevin Walsh of the day will come up and say, um, "Oh, yeah, whatever the chair said, I disagree. I think instead of doing A, we should be doing B." And that would massively undermine Powell, even if Formal is chairman. Now, can something of this occur with this administration? Anything can happen. I think markets then would be massively confused. They wouldn't know which one to listen. The current chair, the future chair, and I think this will add to the sense of chaos and confusion that is currently prevailing. So hopefully we are not going to go in that direction. Trump had to back down on a number of things, on the tariffs, on Powell. Is also little by little withdrawing from the negotiations on Russia, Ukraine, from the Middle East. So, this approach has been, as we know, very bombastic, but then there's the harsh reality and the guardrail that they provide. Reality checks are always the toughest part for every politician when they go against their dreams or their desires. So, but this process tends to be complicated and messy. So expect more volatility going forward.
Yeah. I mean, it seems like we have a papal conclave coming up fairly soon, and it seems almost like there's a parallel with Trump. In his ideal universe, perhaps he might want something like a Federal Reserve conclave where him and his sort of friends can sit around in a circle and just decide the next, governor on their own, and then a smoke of cloud sort of arises. So hopefully that's not what we see, but it's certainly something that we'll continue to track for the next few weeks. As always, Brunello, thank you so much for your time and insight.
Thank you. Until next time.